that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with the rather insignificant George Harvey and the amazing Tom Fennell in the flesh. Say it. Say in the flesh.
I want to get up and take a bow, huh?
Tom knows more about some of these things that we're talking about than I do by far, because he reads everything rather more carefully than I do. I hit a lot of information. Tom actually gets into the stuff that I choose for the show.
Well, I got to talk about something too, you know.
Oh, you do a good job. I should start with one more appeal. Today is the 23rd of January. This particular edition of Energy Week, which is, by the way, our 355th.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. This edition of Energy Week is the last one in our, I don't know, call it billing cycle, our cycle for raising money, and we still have $105 to go. So if anybody wants to fill that gap or part of it, that will be most welcome. You can go to BrattleboroTV.org and click on at the bottom of the screen, or scroll down to a thing that says support local broadcasting, and then click on, however you're going to do it, but which is the good ways, I'm told, are credit cards, and even better is PayPal. But below the amount, the box that shows the amount, you can put in notes, and you just say note that it's for Energy Week. And Brattleboro TV, BCTV, puts probably 10 times or more the amount of money into this show than they ask us to raise. And
okay.
So any donations that are over and above are not really over and above. They're just donations that do good.
Well, if you consider that BCTV and others like it
Yes.
do a community service,
Yeah.
which they do.
They do. That's right.
Should be supported if you can.
I'm getting all kinds of notes now from people one of whom, by the way, was a Trump supporter, who is also a postal employee.
Uh-huh.
And she discovered that the Trump administration wants to privatize the post office.
Oh, yeah.
I hate to see what's going to happen if that happens.
Benjamin Franklin will roll in his grave.
Well, we have an administration that is not doing, first of all, it's not Republican. Second of all, it's not conservative. And third of all, it's not even interested in the Constitution of the United States. And Donald Trump looked at the Constitution and decided that one of the clauses of the Constitution said that he was allowed to do anything he wanted, which is not exactly what it
He can
said.
shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue.
Well, that's what he
Get
said.
away with it.
Yeah. He said something like that. But nevertheless, we should be talking about the show. And
Well, let's move along. We got a picture coming up.
we do, but I have to tell people about the blog.
Okay.
We're going to talk about stuff that is at the blog, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. And if you want to investigate something that we talk about in more depth, you can go to that site, and then we'll keep you informed about the date in which these things were posted at the site, which is usually the day after it came out in the news. Sometimes it's as much as a week.
Some of the things that are on the blog are well worth looking
Absolutely.
up. And I'll try and call your attention to some of them.
Yeah.
Some of them are almost mandatory.
We are starting with Thursday, January 16th. Did I tell you, by the way, that I got an email from a guy who is a professor at San Jose State University? He's a
I don't think so.
professor of environmental science, and he sent a donation for my blog, not for
Okay.
Energy Week, but my blog gets a little bit of money every year, and usually it's close to the amount that it costs to keep it going. And that may have been, he may have sent the only donation last year. But I thanked him, and he, in the exchange of emails after that, explained that my blog, geoharvey.com, is actually considered to be a critical or necessary part of the curriculum.
I think I did. I think
in the
you sent
environment. Yeah.
me a note to
And
that
so the
effect,
kids are
yeah.
required to look at it. Anyway, there I've bragged as much as I should. In fact, more than I should. But
We got a picture coming up. Let's
we're
start
starting
off with that.
on the 16th of January. So if you see something that you want, click on the calendar at geoharvey.com for the 16th of January. There is a BYE Aerospace e-flyer.
And BY is the manufacturer.
And this is from Clean Technica.
And it says electric aircraft pilot training is arriving.
We're getting enough electric airplanes
Then
that
you got to teach people how to use them.
they're teaching people specifically how to use them. Quantum Air and OSM Aviation Corp announced an electric aviation pilot training partnership. OSM Aviation Academy.
These are two operators.
These are two operators. Will conduct the Quantum branded pilot training program according to FAA commercial standards. Electric urban air mobility is taking shape one step at a time.
Well, there's a little quick takeaway from that.
Yeah.
Both OSM and Quantum have both placed substantial orders for the E-Flyer aircraft, which
Yeah.
is what you're looking at right now.
Okay.
So they put their money where their mouth is, you know. And
Well, if they're gonna have a bunch of these airplanes, they have to have pilots who know
how to use them.
know how to use them.
Absolutely.
Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, why not?
We have an item here from Futurity.
Yeah, it is.
Go ahead, Tom.
Irrigation keeps cool. Irrigation keeps things cool in extreme heat. It's almost a duh.
It is. But you know, it reminds me of that vineyard in California,
Yeah.
where they had a microgrid, and everything was tied to the internet through a satellite link up.
Yeah.
And when the fires came, the entire staff evacuated.
Yeah,
but they
but
controlled.
it kept going.
They kept going. They
Yeah.
controlled the vineyard from a distance, and over a period of days, they were able to keep the irrigation system going, and the vines didn't burn.
Amazing.
And neither did anything else. Apparently, a study in Nature Communications examined the influence of irrigation on extreme heat. The cooling effect of irrigation over regions studied partly or completely offset the effect of global warming. So this reduced the heat, very effectively, contributing
On a
to more
local
frequent,
basis.
more frequent and intense, to more frequent and offset the effect of global warming, contributing to more frequent and intense heat extremes by up to a factor of 8. That's a lot.
significant,
That
yeah.
really is. And I read that and I thought we could put up thermal ducting systems, anything that's just black and sits in the sun, it gets hot. And if it's
Yeah.
big enough like a farmer's field, it'll suck in air from outside and push it up. And if it's damp enough, that air will go up and it'll produce clouds, which then produce thunderstorms. This is something that's been known for a long time. And if you did this in certain areas, you could use it to take, for example, salt water and evaporate it, putting it up into the clouds so it'll rain fresh water. Okay. Just, blue skying here.
Here's
as
a
they
quick
say, with
takeaway from the
clouds.
article.
Yes, go ahead.
Global warming increases the likelihood of hot extremes. We've
Yeah.
talked about that.
Oh, I guess we have.
Irrigation expansion cancels or even reverses this effect.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
So what they're saying is more irrigation is good.
More irrigation is good. Okay, now we have another
We've got another picture coming
picture,
up
which
here.
I chose to label probably time to do something.
That's what it says here.
If my house was one of those, I think I know what I would do.
Well,
I wouldn't be taking a picture of that. I'd be jumping into a car and driving
that's what
away.
it looks like these people are doing.
That's
They're
right.
boarded up. This house on the left is boarded up already.
Yeah, I don't know what good that's going to do.
No,
Okay, this is from BBC.
it's a good article. This is a very good article. Sir David Attenborough warns of a climate crisis moment.
Excuse me, the moment of crisis has come. In effects to tackle climate change, Sir David Attenborough has warned, according to the renowned naturalist and broadcaster, quote, "We have been putting things off for year after year," end quote. Sir David's comments came in a BBC News interview.
Well, there's a couple of things in the video. In the article.
Yeah.
There's a video of Attenborough speaking.
Yes.
He basically says the same stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's another video in there. I guess you'd call it a video. It's animated Arctic sea ice
Yes,
over the years, and that's kind of scary.
it is. I've seen that kind of thing in many forms.
Well, I
and
got a
it
couple
is
of
kind of
takeaways
scary.
from the article here. Attenborough says it's, quote, palpable nonsense for politicians who suggest that the Australian fires had nothing to do with the world becoming warmer.
Palpable
Okay.
nonsense.
We know perfectly well, this is a quote, that human activity is behind the heating of the planet. The growth of cities, clearing of forests for farming, and soaring demand for fish has significantly altered nearly 3/4 of the land and more than 2/3 of the oceans.
Yeah.
So this has a very large effect.
Yeah, it does. Okay, we are up to Friday, January 17th, and we have an item from Renew Economy here.
And it says Microsoft pledges to go negative, to go climate negative, and remove 45 years of company emissions.
This is the first time I've seen this kind of action. American tech giant Microsoft made an ambitious pledge to effectively reverse the company's historic contributions to climate change and says it will remove the entirety of its carbon footprint made since the company's founding 45 years ago. This is from Renew Economy.
Well, the article didn't go into detail how they were going to do it,
Yeah.
but it did say that Microsoft has pledged to become carbon neutral by 2030 and carbon negative by 2050.
Well,
and they're on track.
Yeah. Getting from carbon neutral to carbon negative could be a one-day process. You know, you just take down a little carbon and you're there. But I think profoundly what they're talking about is getting all of the carbon they have put into the air, they're going to draw back out again.
That's what they're saying they're doing.
That's
exactly what they-
impressive.
They don't explain how they're going to do it, but that's what they
Yeah.
say they're going to do.
Well, they've probably got a bunch of different ways. Now, we have an item from the BBC.
Man, we got a picture coming
We
up
do
here.
indeed. This is an impressive picture. You know,
Well, look at the size of the guys.
yeah.
For comparison, they're 6 feet. That turbine must be 10 feet.
The turbine, the cowling that it goes in is
That's
like
12.
it's incredible
from the article,
how
it's
big
12
the
feet,
thing is.
yeah. This thing is big.
This is a turbine for a jet engine,
They call it an ultrafan.
ultrafan.
It's the coming thing in jet engines.
Yep.
That's what the article
Got a
said.
title?
Giant jet engines aim to make our flying greener. Well, that certainly is a giant jet engine.
The aerospace industry is under pressure to reduce its environmental impact. Aircraft are getting more efficient, but airline traffic is growing even faster. Rolls-Royce has a solution which involves building a much bigger, much more efficient jet engine, and it will be largely made of carbon fiber.
Well, that's the last part of it is news too.
Yeah, it is indeed. The stuff you can make out of carbon fiber is amazing, and it's so strong.
Well, obviously, it's pretty strong if they're making jet engines.
You know,
out of it.
carbon is such an amazing element. There are things about carbon that are. You know, the most conductive materials we've got are made of carbon.
I would have figured they're metals.
I would have figured too. What is the most conductive thermal material on Earth aside from newly discovered items that, by the way, are also made of carbon?
What?
Most thermally conductive items.
Thermally conductive.
There's a reason diamonds are called ice.
Is that so? Diamonds, huh?
It's because if you've got a big diamond, it can feel cold because it conducts the heat right away from you.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And because diamond is extremely conductive. I would have thought that it would be a resistor, but it's there you go.
Well, I got a quick takeaway here.
Yeah.
Rolls-Royce says the UltraFan will be bigger, quieter, and more fuel efficient than anything it has made before. And Rolls-Royce makes these things, besides luxury automobiles.
Well, I'm thinking we had a thing about a blimp a week or two ago.
Yeah.
That would be carbon neutral if it's going east because of the trade winds and so forth. Well, they could use one of these things to make it go back west again.
Well, for long-haul aircraft, at the moment, jet engines are the only option.
Yeah.
Okay. So the UK firm Reaction Engines is developing a rocket engine to be used on high-speed aircraft and spacecraft, aiming for Mach 5.
Mach 5,
times the speed
I
of
know,
sound.
which is really separate from this particular fan that we're seeing here.
These engines might even be powered by hydrogen, which is a very low-emission fuel.
It emits water, but nothing else.
Not carbon, right.
Not carbon. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, we got another one coming up.
This is from the Argus Press.
Colorado uranium producer lays off a third of Utah workforce. Not good for the local people, I'll tell you.
No, it's not. A Colorado energy company laid off a third of its workforce in southeast Utah, primarily at the last conventional uranium mill operating in the United States. That's the reason I decided to put this in. There was only one conventional uranium mill in the United States, and they're laying off a third of the workforce. Energy Fuels Incorporated laid off 24 of its 79 employees, most of them at the White Mesa Mill, and this is as reported by the Salt Lake Tribune.
Well, there's a little takeaway here.
Yeah.
Global uranium prices have remained below the cost of production. Okay.
So what do? You
About
shut
20%
down.
of U.S. electricity is generated by nuclear power.
Yes.
But more than 92% of uranium fuel used has been imported.
Well, this is something that Donald Trump has wanted to stop. He wants to get all the uranium from the United States, or as much as possible.
Yeah.
And this will show
I
you.
can't really disagree with that. But
This will show you that he's not been very successful with that any more than he's been successful with coal mines. Now what he wants to do is make the Postal Service privatized.
well, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Unless you happen to be a postal worker or possibly a person who uses the mail.
Or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. Let's.
Well, we got a picture coming up
We
here.
do,
And
we
this
do.
picture is of Twin Buttes, Colorado. And I'm going to
Twin Buttes.
try and put it up here.
Okay, you're allowed.
There it is. By Jolly.
By Jolly?
I keep double clicking it and nothing
Oh,
happens.
yes, of course. Why don't you double click it and then you can have double click me. And then I can be talking and stuffing with all these wind turbines behind me.
Yeah, here's a double click. We got them both. Oy vey.
Oh, oy vey is right.
As they say in Brooklyn.
As they say in Brooklyn. Do you know what vey is in oy vey?
Oy vey. Whoa.
Pain.
Well, yeah, po, way.
Yeah, it's a German
whoa.
word. Vey in German is pain, and in Yiddish it's basically the same.
Yeah. Oh, woe is me. Oy
Oh,
vey.
woe is me is exactly right. That's what it is. Okay.
Tri-state generation and transmission to boost renewable energy goal to 50% by 2024. That's coming up pretty quick.
But this is tri-state.
Well, tri-state is a misnomer. It operates in 4 states.
Yes, I know, but tri-state is a co-op of
Yes,
electric
co-op of
co-ops and
co-ops.
utilities.
Yep.
And it has been extremely resistant to the idea of moving away from fossil fuels. And these utilities that are members are...
Some of them are going to say, we're going to quit.
We're going to quit.
Yeah.
And then they get into this long process of figuring out how much that little bitty utility is going to pay Tri-State to get out of its contract, which in one case I think was over $70 million, so they could use renewable energy. Now here's Tri-State saying it's going to have a goal of 50% by 2024. And the thing that they were arguing against was 5%.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Tri-State Generation Transmission Services serves the needs of 43 electric co-ops in 4 states. Yeah, it's a misnomer. They have pushed pushed it to, the co-ops have pushed it to go to renewables. According to the Denver Post, Tri-State intends to increase the amount of electricity it generates from renewable sources to 50% by 2024.
Well, this is some of the things they're doing, and it
Yeah.
starts off, this is from the article. The dramatic decline in the cost of renewables is upending traditional thinking in the utility industry, which it definitely is doing.
Yeah.
Part of the plan is to build 8 new wind and solar installations. Okay? Several coal generating stations will be closed early.
That's also key. They are being closed early.
Early,
This means
exactly.
this is stranded
It's
assets.
economics.
It is, but it's stranded assets. Those
Yeah.
coal burning plants are becoming too costly to run, so they're being shut down.
Exactly.
Right. We are up to Saturday, January 18th, and we've got an item from Inside Climate News.
Yeah, we've talked about this several times
Many
in the
times
past.
in the past.
Kids' climate lawsuit thrown out by appeals court.
A federal appeals court dismissed a lawsuit brought by a group of young people that had sought to compel the federal government to rein in the nation's climate emissions. The court concluded that the youths lacked standing. How could they possibly lack standing?
Well, this sounds to me like it's kind of politically motivated.
Yeah, they lacked standing to sue the government over its actions.
Well, this is from the article, and it's interesting. It's a technicality.
It is.
Okay, but they were ordered to do that, I think. By who, I don't know.
Well,
But I'll read from the article. The court noted that the plaintiffs had succeeded in making a strong case that the government has for decades not only failed to limit emissions but have actively promoted fossil fuel development. The plaintiffs plan to appeal the decision
well, yeah, but where are they going to go?
to the full court of the Ninth Circuit.
For full court of the Ninth Circuit. Now, that one, I wouldn't be surprised if it ruled in their favor. And then if that happens, then the administration appeals and it goes to the Supreme
Well,
Court.
this has been going on for about a year with appeal after appeal after appeal, which is rejected. And finally, they accepted their appeal. So now these guys are going to appeal.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting development. I mean, the kids are making a good argument.
It is. It is. It's kind of depressing, but, you know. The fact of the matter is, if they had won,
Yeah.
then the federal government would have appealed. So
Yeah.
it was going to go to an appeal
No
court,
matter what.
No matter what.
No matter what.
Okay.
Well, eventually they'll get to the bottom of it, but it could be a long time.
Yeah, it could be a long time. Maybe, I hope we're still alive when that happens. Okay,
Well, we
our
got a
next
picture
item
coming up here.
is from the BBC.
Let's start off with the picture.
Let's do this picture. That is a picture
Sydney,
of people
Australia.
walking in Sydney, which, by the way, just to remind everybody, city of 5 million people, was almost completely surrounded by wildfires.
Sydney was in danger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was within an hour's, the fire was within an hour's drive.
Now, I want to point out, when you've got these kinds of fires and they're crossing areas that are grassy and open. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of that area around there is forest, but grassy open areas, those fires can travel as fast as a car can drive.
They can
really go.
They certainly can travel faster than a man running.
Another thing we had last week, when a eucalyptus tree burns,
Yeah.
burning bark can come down
the
18
burning bark
miles
was
away
happening.
to start the fire over again. Okay, so what do you got for
Heavy rains hit some blaze-hit regions.
Yeah, and I want to point out before I read this that this is a few regions in southeastern Australia which were hit the hardest.
Well, the whole country's getting it.
But the whole country has been burning.
The southeast is getting it real bad, but
That's
the whole
right.
country's getting it.
Heavy rains and thunderstorms have hit parts of Australia's east coast, dousing some of the fires, but bringing a new threat of flooding. Major roads were closed in Queensland. Power cuts were reported in parts of New South Wales, and as a result of the weather, but the rain is helping the fires. So we've talked, this is what climate change is. It goes to more extreme weather. So it was extreme drought, and now it's extreme rain, which is exactly what happened a couple of years ago in California.
Yeah, it's exactly, that's exactly right, yeah. Well, it's an interesting article to look up. There's 3 short videos on it.
Yep.
One of them's kind of cute. It's a thirsty koala. And I've got a quick takeaway here. There have been downpours in the states of Victoria, New South Wales, and Queensland, which have all been badly hit by the bushfire crisis.
Right.
Firefighters were making the most of the rain and cooler temperatures to try and tackle the remaining bushfires. But major fires continue to rage in regions in the south and southeast of the country, as you just said.
Yeah, well, actually, all over the
All
country.
over, but most hardest hit is the south and southeast.
Yeah.
Which is New South Wales,
So
it's Victoria.
there are still fires in the area,
yeah,
but some of them have been dampened or possibly put
dampened
out.
a little bit, or the rain helped the firefighters get on top of
That
some
was
of
the area of that mega fire that we
Yeah,
talked about
where they
last
got
week.
together.
Yeah,
A couple of them got
I
together.
didn't
Wow.
read anything in this or anything else about the combination of the rain and the mega fire, or at least not that I remember. But I would imagine that mega fire would probably have been slowed down by this. Okay, we are up to Sunday, January 19th.
Well, this is an interesting one. SUNY Albany sets out to reduce carbon footprint.
The University of Albany is gearing up to chase net zero carbon neutral status. Last month, UAlbany received a $2 million grant from the state, New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, which is what they call NYSERDA, to plan how to go to net zero. It will not be quick or easy, but it can be done.
An interesting article about what these schools are doing.
Yeah.
And they also mention other area colleges which are not part of SUNY. And they're all ratcheting up green incentives.
Yes.
Okay. The state of New York's goal by the year 2050 is to switch to a carbon neutral economy. This is the whole state. This is just the state
Yes.
government.
Yes.
Eliminate almost all carbon dioxide emissions and offset the remainder. That's a big task.
It's a big task.
That's
but,
a very-
you know, I
hope they
read
can
in
do
the
it.
news today,
Yeah.
and it didn't even make it to my blog. Maybe it will tomorrow because it came in really late. Finland is planning on being carbon neutral in 2035. That's only 15 years
That's
from
pretty
now.
quick.
Well, you know, and they had pictures of people out and going out into the outback in Finland, and it said people in Finland are really in touch with the environment. And as part of this, they had a video of Finns on a hunt. They were hunting moose, and it struck me.
They got moose in Finland, huh?
They sure do. And in fact, I had a friend once who was Russian, and he told me about killing a moose not very many miles from Moscow.
I'll be darned.
And I said, how did you do that? He said, I just shot it with a 12-gauge shotgun. And I thought, 12-gauge shotgun? I wouldn't shoot a 12-gauge shotgun at a moose for any amount of money. Those animals are dangerous. But
A
these
mad
guys,
moose, huh? A mad moose is... yeah.
You shoot a moose and you don't kill it, you're in trouble. but they were walking around with rifles that had silencers on them.
No kidding.
The
Wow.
Finnish government, if you're going to have a rifle, the Finnish government encourages you to put a silencer on it. It's a little different than the United States,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
guess.
better for your ears. Okay, we're up
Well,
to...
we got a picture here.
We do, and
It goes
this
with
is
one,
that
yeah.
last one was from the Daily Gazette,
Let's get this picture.
and this
up.
one is from CNN, and that is a picture of an oil field.
Not necessarily this oil field, but
No,
an oil field.
yeah, it's an oil field, although the photographer is Karina Johansson, and my guess is she's Norwegian.
That's a good
So,
guess.
yeah,
Something
what-
like that.
What's your...
Norway says its new giant oil field is actually good for the environment. Critics call it climate hypocrisy.
Boy, is it ever. Oh, my gosh. You know, I hate to tell you, but this is kind of like handing a person $10,000 and saying, I want you to kill that guy. And then saying when you're arrested, but I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to kill him.
Have mercy on me. I killed my parents. That makes me an orphan.
Yes, right. Okay.
Norway Says its new giant oil field is... Oh, I said this one.
You did indeed.
I did already.
I wasn't going to interrupt.
Well, climate hypocrisy is what it is.
Yeah. Norway claims the newly opened Johan Sverdrup, that's just an
That's
attempt, oil field is helping to, quote, reduce emissions, end quote, because it is powered entirely by renewable energy. Emissions are credited where the fuel is burned, not where it's made. So they are not Norway's problem.
Well, it's interesting the way Norway does it. Instead of running diesels out there, they run cables from their hydropower power on the land.
But it's still, I have to say, this is hypocrisy. It really is.
Well, as you are about to say, or if you hadn't said, emissions are credited where fuel is burned, not where it's made.
So if you sell this stuff in France or
No
Spain,
more
it's not your problem.
Yeah.
Not my problem. I'm sorry. That's not acceptable as far as I'm concerned.
There's an interesting 13-minute video here of how an activist journalist bought shares in the company so that he could influence their decisions.
Somebody should donate some shares to that company to Greta Thunberg and see what happens.
Well, there's a couple of takeaways here.
Yeah.
Sverdrup, or however you say it, the third largest oil field on the Norwegian continental shelf, is completely powered by renewable energy.
Yeah.
Hydro energy.
Hydro.
For the first time ever, electric cars outsold gasoline and diesel vehicles in Norway. So something's happening, right?
Yes, something is happening in Norway, and you'd think that the Norwegians would know better than to...
Norway is Europe's second biggest oil producer after Russia.
That's the problem. That is a problem. They've got so much money in oil, how are they going to give that up?
It's very difficult.
Well,
emissions from oil and gas Norway sold abroad reached roughly 470 million tons by 2017. This is not insignificant.
No. One of the things that came up at Davos, and it will be next week, is there's been a lot of discussion about the paradigm of business and how it has to change. Capitalism, as it is now, is not working. It's killing the planet. And by the way, so is socialism.
Yeah.
So we need something else. And one of the people who talked about that, and there was an interview at CNN, BBC, was Prince Charles. Which is not surprising to me. I mean, Prince Charles has been heavily into environmentalism for a long time. Prince Charles told his tenants in the Duchy of Cornwall, which is huge, it's far bigger than the county of Cornwall, includes most of Devon, which is a big county, and all over the rest of Western England. There's a lot of places in it. He told his tenants that if they're going to farm, they have to do it to organic standards. And the result of that was that his farmers entered into a period of prosperity like they had never known before.
Is that so?
Yeah. This happened years ago.
Interesting.
Okay, should we move on?
Yeah, let's move on here. We got one from the BBC coming up.
Yeah. And
have gum trees made the bushfires worse? Well, we just mentioned that.
Eucalyptus forests, it's just sad to see how this works. But Douglas pine has a similar kind of thing. Some of these trees will not reseed. The new seedlings will not grow unless there's a fire.
Yeah.
So eucalyptus forests are some of the most inflammable in the world. The trees, also known as gum trees, are fire resilient, but they can actually spread the fires. So they will recover from a fire, but they'll also spread it. Burning bark can be carried off by the wind. It can ignite new fires 18 miles ahead of the main fire. This is something that I referred to earlier. I was saying that we had talked about it before. I was wrong. This is the reference. 18 miles away. This is, not a joke.
No, that's pretty serious.
That's pretty serious.
Well, the article says that eucalyptus trees cover more than 3/4 of Australia's forested area. So it's certainly the #1 tree growing in Australia.
It's also where the koalas live.
Yeah.
They need eucalyptus or they won't live.
I think they're about the only thing that can eat eucalyptus. Seriously.
Yes, it might be.
I think it's poisoned everybody else.
I'd be very surprised if it wasn't, but they need it. They can't eat anything else. Okay, we're up to Monday, January 20th, and we have a picture here.
That picture coming up here.
And this is from Renewables Now, and it's about Rhode Island.
Offshore wind farm.
That is not in Rhode Island, though. Maybe
I don't think
one day.
so. I don't know. It's a small wind farm.
It's part of a bigger one, I suspect, but it's not the Block Island wind farm.
Well, Rhode Island orders 100% renewables electricity by 2030.
The governor of Rhode Island, Gina M. Raimondo, has signed. Do you suppose that's Portuguese? There's a lot of Portuguese people.
There are,
in
that could be. I think it's probably Italian, but it could be Portuguese.
Could be. I was just,
Yeah, definitely a lot of Portuguese.
Yeah, she signed an when I lived in the South Shore of Massachusetts.
I lived in Rhode Island.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I thought was really kind of fun was that you go into a pizza place,
Yeah.
and you'll find that they don't have pepperoni, but they do have Portuguese sausage. Anyway, let's do this. She signed an executive order that directs the state to source 100% of its electric power from renewable energy sources by 2030. While Rhode Island is not the first state to do so, it is the first state to set the switch to renewables on such a tight schedule.
Well, one thing they do mention, the 400 megawatt Revolution wind farm
Yes.
is expected to come online in 2024.
Yeah.
It's a building, folks.
Yes.
It will mean a full third of Rhode Island's electricity will be supplied by renewables. Just this one wind farm.
Just the one wind farm. And there's other wind farms coming up. So that's what we've got. Okay, now we're still on January 20th, and we have an item from the Denver Post.
Fires set stage for irreversible forest losses in Australia. We've just mentioned some of that.
Yeah. Before the wildfires, ecologists divided up Australia's native vegetation into two categories. Fire-adapted landscapes that burn periodically. That's the eucalyptus forests.
Well, that's been happening for a long time.
Yeah. And those that don't burn.
Yep.
And that includes rainforests and peat swamps and stuff like that. Now the distinction has lost its meaning because even rainforests and peat swamps catch fire, likely changing them forever. A rainforest is not going to recover from a forest fire very easily.
Not easily, no.
And the same thing is true of a peat swamp, although I would think that a peat swamp would be easier. Peat, by the way, on an acre per acre basis, I have read sequesters far more carbon dioxide than regular forests.
It does, huh?
Yeah.
And peat is basically a swamp, isn't it?
Yeah, and peat actually is sphagnum.
Sphagnum, yeah,
Really
it's a moss.
Amazing plant. It's very beautiful under a microscope.
Never looked at one.
It's amazing.
Well, I got a takeaway here. Fires have consumed some 40,000 square miles, which is as big as Ohio, in Australia. This fire season alone. And scientists say the effects of the nation's forests could be long-lasting.
Yeah.
Australia's forests are burning at a rate unmatched in modern times.
Yes.
Some scientists and forestry experts doubt that reseeding and intervention efforts can match the scope of the destruction.
Well, they're going to have to produce a different landscape, I think. There's stuff going on in Australia that this natural sequence farming.
Nobody has foreseen.
Yeah, natural sequence farming is something that I think is going to take over in Australia.
What's that?
Well, this guy, what is his name? Richard Andrews, something like that. He's a farmer who's been pushing what he calls natural sequence farming for years.
We've talked about that, haven't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
And with the rain going downhill.
The rain is going downhill, but every place you can do it, you stop it. Or not stop it altogether, but slow it down.
So it's not washing the land away.
Exactly. So it's not only is it not washing the land away, but it's allowing water to seep into the water table.
Yeah.
And he was doing this, and everybody around him was complaining because he was letting willow trees grow up on the creeks, and the willow trees, just gobble up water. And he said, no, they're slowing that water down also. And the amount of water that they're slowing down is far in excess of what they're using. So they're raising the water table. Well, when people started realizing that his farm was raising their water table, they stopped complaining and started doing the same thing. And the result of that was that there's this little valley in Australia where they didn't lose any animals to drought when everybody else was having herd die-offs because their cattle couldn't find any water. Mm-hmm. And so it's something that even Scott Morrison, the current prime minister, got interested and visited and was oohing and ahhing over it. So I think they're going to change, but it's going to. If you're going to college or in high school and thinking about going to college, environmental engineering might be a way to go.
Good, something good to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
You will find employment.
I suspect.
Well, we got a picture coming up.
We
here.
do.
Let's see if I can find it.
A picture that is on the one hand kind of pretty and on the other hand kind of depressing.
And there is the picture.
There's the picture.
And that happens to be South Tarawa Island.
Yes.
Which is in absolutely the middle of nowhere.
Except for one thing.
Yeah.
And that is the United States lost a whole bunch of people trying to take it back from the Japanese during the Second World War. And there are burial grounds on these islands, and they're going to be washed away because of rising seas.
It could be, because things don't look good for South Tarawa right now.
This is from The Guardian.
Climate refugees can't be returned home, says a landmark UN human rights ruling. Well, there's more to that one than meets the eye.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
It is unlawful for governments to return people to countries where their lives might be threatened by the climate crisis, a landmark ruling by the UN Human Rights Committee has found. The judgment is considered to be a legal, quote, tipping point, end quote. In other words,
there's a backstory
there's
here.
precedent
Let me read
set.
the backstory here.
Yeah, go ahead.
The judgment relates to a man from the Pacific island of Kiribati, which is part of the South Tarawa chain, which is considered one of the countries most threatened by rising sea levels.
Yeah.
The population there had increased from 1,600 in 1947 to 50,000 in 2010 due to sea level rising, leading to other islands becoming uninhabitable.
Yeah.
Okay? Which had led to violence and social tensions. Kiribati was predicted to be uninhabitable in 10 to 15 years. So this guy applies for protection to New Zealand, claiming his family's lives were at risk, and the New Zealand courts rejected it.
And now the United Nations is saying,
well,
sorry.
basically what they said, that the time frame of 10 to 15 years could allow for Kiribati to intervene. Okay, so they're not saying that he couldn't do it. They're saying that this is politics.
This is 10 to 15 years. Kiribati's going to stop all of this in 10 to 15 years. I got news for you. Look at that picture. That picture, those buildings are at sea level.
Oh, yeah. I would say that the whole island is not 10 feet above sea level.
Yeah, and what is the island made of?
It looks to me like sand.
Probably coral sand.
Yeah, it probably is coral.
And how easy is it to build a seawall on coral sand?
Well, it seems to me to be a duck soup.
The water's just going to go right under the seawall. It's going to go through.
They'll go through the porous coral sand.
That's right.
Well, the message is clear.
Yeah.
Okay, Pacific states don't need to be underwater before triggering those human rights violations. There would be a trigger of international responsibility for governments not to return people to places where their life is at risk because of climate-induced changes.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're not saying they can't help these people. They're saying they should help these people.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they're saying that this particular guy, he didn't consider that it's 10 to 15 years, which is enough time for them to do something.
Yeah.
I think this is all political.
Okay, we are up to
Personally, I think.
Tuesday, January 21st.
Yeah, we are.
And we've got, okay.
Well, let's Let's get us both up here for a second.
Okay, let's do that. Everybody can see both of us.
The majority of electric cars in Australia are charged with renewable power.
This was interesting to me.
It is
This
interesting.
From a site called The Driven. A whopping 75% of electric cars in Australia are charged almost exclusively with renewable power, according to an informal poll of 400 owners conducted by Future Smart Strategies Managing Director and electric vehicle advocate Professor Ray Wills.
This is being driven by economics. We've noticed in Australia a lot of people are voluntarily putting up EVs, putting up PVs.
Yeah.
And they're doing it because they're saving money.
Yeah, and
It's
if they
as simple
happen
as
to
that.
buy an electric car too, that's
Well,
how they charge their car.
These guys are thinking.
Yeah.
You know, currently EVs are mostly charged at home.
Yes.
Okay,
There you
and
go.
more than half is done with energy generated from rooftop solar.
Yes.
So it doesn't cost you anything for gas. Even on a 20% renewable mix, the carbon emissions from an EV are 40% less than an internal combustion engine.
Oh yeah.
And we
Yeah.
mentioned that too. I mean, that's a no-brainer, really.
Yep. Okay.
But you don't think about it.
Right.
We got another picture coming up
We
here.
do, and this is an item from New Atlas.
And that is a picture of, supposedly, the Haliade X turbines. And
As they will be.
Because as far as I know, there's only one of them in service right now.
I think you're correct on that.
It's in Rotterdam. And,
Yeah, and there's something about this picture that makes it just looks like it was manufactured by some artist.
Well, there are not enough Haliade X's in
Well, yes,
existence
that's
to
true.
do this picture.
Oh, well, you
but
can-
it's a very large turbine.
Oh, it
I mean,
is.
that's 12 megawatts.
Yeah,
One turbine is 12 megawatts.
And
And
the-
the cell is big enough to put 3 buses in it.
and the blades are longer than a football field.
And the blades are longer
Each
than a football
one
field.
is longer than a football field.
Well, what it says here is work begins at Dogger Bank, which will be the world's largest offshore wind farm.
Now, this is something that I think is absolutely amazing. Construction is underway at the gigantic Dogger Bank offshore wind farm being built off the UK. Dogger Bank is quite a ways out to sea. You could sail for quite a while without being able to, in the direction of these wind turbines from the coast, without being able to see
You
them.
can't see them. It's pretty far.
Because they're a long ways out. It will outsize all others. Currently, the 659 megawatt Walney wind farm is the world's largest. The Dogger Bank wind farm will have a capacity of 3.6 gigawatts.
That's 5 times.
Yeah, it's 5 times as big, in a little more than 5 times.
Yeah.
It is expected to begin operating in 2023. So it's going to be, by a factor of more than 5, the largest wind farm ever built, and it's going to be built sometime over the next 4 years. Between now,
2023.
between now
Coming
and
up.
the end of 2023. Okay,
Well, more and bigger turbines.
yes,
Okay, the GE Haliade X's have already been chosen.
yes.
3 wind farm sites at 12 gigawatts each, and 20 miles worth of cabling.
Yes.
20 miles. The project is slated for completion in 2022 and for operation in 2023. Coming up soon,
This is
folks.
amazing. Yeah, it is absolutely amazing. It'll be interesting to see the pictures of the ships putting those things up, because they're going to have to be significantly bigger than most of the jack-up ships that we've seen.
Everything about this is big. Everything about
And
this
it's
is
happening
big.
off the coast of the UK. You'd think it would be happening in Texas.
Well, it's the North Sea. North Sea is fairly large.
I should mention to those watching that Tom and I both grew up in a time when Texas was known primarily for one thing, and that was stuff that was big.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, still January 21st, we have an item from CNBC.
Okay, wind energy powerhouse Vestas announces plans for zero waste turbines.
Vestas says it is aiming to produce zero waste turbines by the year 2040. The Danish company said this would be accomplished through the use of, quote, a circular economy approach, end quote, in design, production, service, and end-of-life parts of the value chain. So they're going to be recirculating everything through this.
Well, I'll touch on
Go
that.
ahead.
Vestas currently is the world's largest supplier of wind energy.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's actually bigger than Lego.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're both Danish.
Yeah, but you know, when people are talking about big wind,
Yeah.
it just boggles the mind that they would talk about big wind when the entire wind industry is only about a third of the size of some of the
Well, that's true,
single
too.
big oil companies. Just
Well, what they're
one
talking
big
about
oil.
here is turbines produce renewable energy,
Yep.
but their construction has an environmental impact.
Yes.
So these circular systems that they're talking about, they employ reuse, sharing, repair, refurbishment, remanufacturing, and recycling to create a closed loop system.
Which the Europeans have been doing this for quite a while. My understanding is that you cannot buy a Mercedes car that doesn't have used parts in it.
Okay.
They take the parts, refurbish them,
And use them
They
again.
have to look and act
They're
like
the same
they're new.
parts.
But, you know,
A fuel pump's a fuel pump,
yeah, well, yeah.
sort of.
Yep. Okay, we're up to January 22nd,
Well, we
which is
got
a
a picture
Wednesday,
coming
and
up
we have
here,
a
too.
picture of the Navajo coal-burning power station,
Which is closed.
which is closed, and an item from Utility Dive.
Proposed 2.2 gigawatt storage plant. 2.2 gigawatts. Say that again.
Yeah, 2.2
Gig means
gigawatt.
big.
That's right.
2 gigawatt storage project plans to use Navajo coal station power lines. Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
They're there already.
A proposal for a 2.2 gigawatt pumped hydro facility in Arizona moved a step closer to reality last week as the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission accepted its application for a preliminary permit. The $3.6 billion project would rely on transmission lines of the retired Navajo coal-burning generating station.
Well, the pumped storage facility is already there anyhow. They're
Yes.
not using it for that, but it's called Lake Powell.
Yes.
And it was built to get fresh water to Las Vegas
Yeah.
back in the late 40s.
Yep.
Okay, the lines, they're talking about now, the transmission lines, are an extremely valuable asset that are currently underutilized.
Yes.
Because the Navajo coal station stopped.
Yes.
Okay, so they're going to put them to work again. And they're also going to be putting back to work the Lake Powell Reservoir,
Yes.
which is near Las Vegas. And this new pump storage plant will deliver power to Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and Phoenix
Yep.
for the late night and evening peaks.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's basically a peaking plant.
So what's going to happen is excess power that's on the grid at late night, because the wind turbines are going and nobody wants the electricity, are going to go into pumping water from the lower reservoir to the upper reservoir.
Bingo.
And then during the daytime, when people want electricity, during a hot afternoon when everybody's got his air conditioner going,
It's there for them.
it's there.
All you do is flip a switch.
That's right. That's right. And of course, this is
Well,
basically...
it's a good use of surplus assets.
Yep. Okay, our next item is from WTTW News.
Yeah, this one's an interesting one.
It sure is.
Does Illinois have the energy to opt out of FERC?
The idea of opting out of the Federal Energy Regulatory
You can't do that.
Commission. Well, this is really interesting. The ruling by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to support fossil fuels could lead to spikes in energy bills. Illinois Citizens Utility Board, environmental groups, and legislators are putting forth a multifaceted package that includes a provision to opt out of FERC. What they're saying is we're not going to be part of what do they call it? The big areas where for energy. The name just goes out of my mind. There's 3 in the United States, and this is the eastern one. FERC has come up with this ruling saying, okay, if the state is going to give incentives to renewable energy, then we are going to put a limit on the low price that energy can be sold at. And believe me, they're talking about a market regulation of the whole market.
That seems to be what's going on here.
This
I
is
got a quick
exactly
takeaway.
the opposite of what a normal conservative would do.
I got a takeaway here. First of all, there's an interesting 5-minute video.
Yes, there is.
But critics say that FERC's actual objective is to punish states like Illinois that have passed laws to support renewable and clean energy. It's just a backdoor coal bailout.
It is very clearly a backdoor coal bailout. It benefits the coal industry, and it benefits the oil industry, and it benefits natural gas, and it benefits nuclear. And
Existing Illinois law requires that by 2025, at least a quarter of its energy comes from renewable sources.
And they're trying to make that as expensive as they possibly can.
Illinois is already lagging behind that coal by quite a bit.
Yes. Well, now they're saying, okay, we're going to make our own power and keep it in Illinois, and the federal government doesn't have any right to regulate that.
That's what it's about.
So Illinois would become a huge, gigantic giga-microgrid.
Well,
that's a new word,
by the way,
giga-microgrid.
Huh? Isn't that a contradiction in terms?
It's called an oxymoron.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Another one is military intelligence. Okay. I had a friend who had a bumper sticker that said, "I was an oxymoron." And his wife, who was Russian and didn't really speak English all that well, objected. And he said, "You don't understand," and explained it to her, and she thought it was funny.
Well, we got a picture coming up here.
We do indeed, and it's a picture of a wind farm in Scotland.
It is that.
And it is related to an item from ZME Science.
And it says, Scotland to reach 100% renewable energy goal this year. And by the way, ZME Science is a website magazine.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty good one.
Yeah. Scotland has been increasing the percentage of electricity it gets from renewables rapidly. It is to achieve a 100% renewables-based energy matrix this year, which would add Scotland to a list of other countries that have already achieved the same goal, including
Congo,
Iceland,
Paraguay.
But you look at that and you say, Congo? Huh? What? Paraguay? What? Well, Paraguay is already producing about 1,000% of the electricity that it needs.
It's all hydro, isn't it?
It's all, they've got a huge hydro dam.
And there's Iceland.
And they're selling
geothermal.
And hydro.
And hydro.
Paraguay is selling that excess power to Brazil and Argentina. So it's a really important, and has been for a very long time, really important. It used to be that Albania was 100% renewable, but they built a coal-burning power plant.
Have they really? I'll be darned.
Oh, well.
Well, there's a takeaway here.
Yes?
Fossil fuels are some of the main drivers of climate change. Duh.
Duh.
So shifting towards renewable energy is one of the main changes a country can make. Duh.
Yep.
Scotland has set its goal to leave behind fossils by 2020.
Yes.
That's pretty ambitious. The next focus for the government should be in decarbonizing the heat and transportation sectors.
And they say that heat is going to be the harder one in Scotland.
Well, the government has pledged to phase out petrol and diesel vehicles by 2032.
So it would probably be not a good idea to buy an expensive new car in Scotland if it runs on...
If it's not electric.
If it's not electric.
I would think.
Yeah, okay.
Well, we're at the end of this stuff
at the end of the whole thing. And I have to do something here so I can get to the end screen.
We've only got 43 seconds. I was looking at the other side.
Oh, okay.
Not too bad.
And my message here is have a radically superior week.
Oh, that's a new message.
I decided well, you know, with my blog, I put this thing up every day that says, you know, have a wonderful day, but it's always a different message.
Uh-huh.
And so what I decided to do with the blog is go through the last week and just find the one that I like the best.
Okay.
And put it up for... And
for this week.
This had been a day that said have a radically superior day, and I made this have a radically superior week.
You're allowed to do that.
Huh?
You're allowed to do that.
I'm allowed to do that. I can do it. Okay.
So I guess we are about finished, aren't we?
We're about done.
Wave goodbye.
Bye.